Seeing that the time is 6:40, I will call the Select Board meeting to order for this Tuesday, January 7, 2020. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we will start the meeting as we always do with the public forum. If there's anybody out there that would like to share ideas, opinions, or questions, please feel free to step up now. Come on up. Hi there.
Hey, how are you? Happy New Year to everybody.
All right, good evening.
Yeah. I'm Mahesh from 16 Redwood Path, Legacy Farms North. So we were here to check whether Roy submitted all the plans and how do we secure a warrant for the annual town meeting and what's the process? Do we need?
Come on.
We have not received any plans from Mr. McDowell. However, in the future, if you should feel free to drop by my office or give me a call. You have my cell phone, my office number, as well as my email address.
Are we town is asking Roy, or are we waiting on Roy, or do we know the dates, or?
So procedurally, when it comes to public forum, the 3 to 5 of us up here are not allowed to comment. We're allowed to say yes, no, and thank you. So I don't have any of the information that you're asking. That's all stuff that Mr. Kamala would get. So,
okay.
But you don't have to wait for a select board meeting either. You can call them every day.
Oh, okay.
Keep them honest.
Or you can ask Roy. I mean, we keep asking it, but like if we don't know whether he's at what time. I mean, he's not giving us a date. So if you can ask, like again, at what date we are he'll be giving us the plans.
As you know, we've given Roy the requirements for street acceptance, and to your point, we will ask him the delivery dates for each of the items.
Okay. So there's no. I mean, the concern is there's no dates associated to it, so it might be a chance if we not get before the warrants put in, so this will not come into the annual town meeting, so that's our concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? So I do. Over this last week, I was up with my family at my cabin up in Maine, and I got a very troubling phone call from Mr. Kamalu stating that one of our own is no longer with us, Mike Fredette. So Mike, for people that don't know, Mike was about a 33-year employee for the DPW. Mike was the son of a guy who was the Water and Sewer Commissioner, Hank. For those that don't know Hank, there is a skate park at EMC Park named after Hank. Hank was a police officer. I'll maybe tie into a little bit of tonight's visit. He was the first guy in Hopkinton to have a canine, and the family is a huge part of what people in my generation equate the town of Hopkinton to. I grew up with Mike. I played softball with Mike. I was his water boy on the football team. I worked when he was in the water department, and it was a highway water. In the summers, I used to work for the DPW for the highway department. I worked with Mike. I played softball with Mike. I drank with Mike. I fought with Mike. I didn't often win fights with Mike. Mike was a great guy. And when things like this happen, a 33-year veteran of the town, I would not be doing my job, even if I didn't know him, I would not be doing my job as a selectman by not bringing it up and talking about all that he meant to the town. I don't expect anybody else here to say any words about him. I don't think anybody knew him, with the exception of Chief Slammin. I don't think that anybody knew him for the length that I did. His family's going through a very hard time right now. And this is, I actually met up with him and a few other friends on Friday evening, and it was kind of a throwback to when we grew up. We regressed right back to hanging out at various places where the police did not know as children, and it was uplifting, and it was sobering, and it was sad, and the town's heart goes out to the remaining Fredette family, the Stevens family that lives on Priscilla Park in the house that he grew up in. That was his sister Michelle, and he was a great guy, and we will miss him for a long, long time. So that was, I know that I exceeded my 2 minutes, but thankfully the chair didn't shut me down. So, so we will miss you, Mike, and there's going to be a wake for him Sunday night, I believe at Cronin's, up on Church Street. And there's going to be a really, really fun get-together on the 24th at the Gun Club in Woodville. That I think that if you knew Mike, and I know that a lot of police officers here must have worked details with him and known him throughout the years. I know Phil Powers, you've known him as long as I did almost, and it would be nice to have as many representatives of the town show up to something like that, but please not in uniform. So again, I'm sorry for carrying on as I did, but he meant a lot to me personally, and I know he meant a lot to the town and to a lot of the townspeople here. So thank you for listening to me. So board, you have nothing else, right? Good. So we'll move on to staff recognition. The select board will recognize Officer Brian Sanchioni and Titan for their actions to save a woman's life on 12/20/19. Officer Sanchioni, Officer Titan, and Chief Lee. Chief, if you would bring us up to speed on the event of what happened.
Okay, I certainly will. And Mr. Chair, just I'd like to say sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Those are very kind words. I'm going to start off by reading a email from the Chief of Police in Milford. This incident occurred in Milford on December 20th, 2019. And let me go ahead with that. Chief Pighetti, I hope I'm saying his name right. Please allow the opportunity to call attention to one of your outstanding police officers, Patrolman Brian Sanchioni, and his K-9 partner, Titan. On Friday, December 20th, 2019, approximately 10 p.m., the Milford Police Department received a call for service that involved a female subject that had left the residence on foot and had not returned. Milford officers responded, and after a brief search, determined that a K-9 should be called. At this time, Hopkins PD was notified, and your K-9 responded within minutes. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Officer Sanchioni and Titan located the female some distance away, lying under a tree in obvious physical distress as she was improperly dressed for the existing conditions. It should be noted that the air temperature that night was 17 degrees, and her exposure was in excess of 30 minutes. The female was treated on scene and immediately transported to the hospital for hypothermia. If it was not for for Officer Sanchioni's immediate response to our call and the specific training of K-9 Titan to search for the missing person, the incident quite possibly may have ended with tragic results. Therefore, on behalf of the entire Milford community, I wish to commend Officer Sanchioni and K-9 Titan for their swift actions, which may have very well saved the life of a young female who was in desperately need of assistance. Please extend a sincere gratitude, and I request a copy of the commendation be placed in this personal file. Thank you and the Hopkins Police Department for our strong working relationship and our continued partnership. That was a great letter by the chief. I'm extremely proud of both officers. I can't let you know how how much that Brian is dedicated to this. If you can see by his face, he's a very serious individual. And he takes his job very seriously. But he puts in a tremendous amount of hours, and he is totally dedicated to this endeavor. A lot of responsibility, you know, he's pretty much put the dog 24/7. Dog goes home with him at night. But they are a great working team. And I think it just, as far as setting goals since I've been here, I think this is one of the top ones, and I think it's really paying off. But I'd really like to commend their actions and their dedication to the Hopkinton Police Department and the community.
Just want to say thank you guys for having me up here. I appreciate the recognition, although I don't think I deserve any of it. It's all this guy right here. I just get to hold the leash. It's an honor for me to be able to watch him work, and it's something we enjoy doing every day. Our department's very supportive of us. We are not always around. We have to spend a lot of hours for training, but that training is so that when we go to calls like this, to me and him, it's just another training day. We're not going to give you guys anything but 100% the best product we can give you. So this guy deserves all the credit. It's his nose that works, not mine. Like I said, I just hold the leash.
Okay. Mr. Catino.
Yeah, I was pushing for this K-9 for a few years now, and I'm just so glad it really is working out well for us. I remember we used to have to wait for other departments to bring K-9s to us, and now for other departments to be, calling for our help is just, it's a great spot to be in. And I really, Officer Santioni, thank you very much for all your hard work, and because I know what it's like training. I have a Doberman, and I know what it's like to keep up the training because lots of people are afraid of them, so you have to totally keep them under wraps. But really, thank you very much. Thanks for everything you keep doing, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Mary Jo?
Well, I met Titan the first night that he was here and was introduced to all of us. And I've seen him doing his trials over at the Common for the police festivities this summer. And this is my third time in meeting Titan. And I have always thought that we had some nice-looking police officers in town, but really Titan is the most handsome I've ever seen. And I'm just thrilled that something like this has come up and that we have a chance to give recognition to the fact that the K-9 is working wonderful here in Hopkinton. So congratulations, Brian and Titan.
Thank you.
So point of clarification, you were talking about Titan.
I was.
Okay.
I'm used to it.
It's Mr. January calendar.
Yeah. So, so the mark of a good leader is someone who takes the blame and diverts the credit. The fact that you were in 2 minutes talking to us and 2 or 3 times you pointed it all to the dog. It's not all the dog. It's you as well. So it's mostly the dog, but it's you as well. I know you don't love to be up here in front of us getting accolades. I know it. On the surface, it's a great thing. It was someone that was in distress, and the dog went out and found her, and it's all set. But when you boil it down to brass tacks, that dog, one of our officers, saved a life. And what price can you put on a life? You can't put a price on a life. I guess fortunately it wasn't one of the lives from our town. Our town wasn't in danger. You were able to go to another town, kind of showcase our crown jewel, and represent the town of Hopkinton in the wonderful regards that most people hold us in. And so thank you to Titan, thank you to you. That dog would go and sniff things all day long, but it needs, I have a dog, and I'm the laziest owner you'll ever find. I have a tennis ball and a tennis racket, and I whale it into the woods, and I go in and watch Judge Judy till it comes back. So you do a great job, and, I'm very appreciative of the work that you do, and Titan and the chief and everybody else here that wears blue, and You guys do a great job, so thank you very much to all.
Thank you.
Mr. Kamal, do you have anything on this?
Again, I think the board has said everything. Great job, excellent work, fantastic investment by the community, already paying back. Good thing is, I understand Titan is housed in Uxbridge, so I may benefit sometime down the road too. But good job, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. All right, dismissed. Not you. Have a seat. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is staff appointments. The select board will consider recommendation relative to hiring of 2 new employees. Mr. Kamalu.
Through the chair, the chief is here to introduce Officer Jessica Ferreira.
Okay, Chief?
Through the chair, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jessica Ferreira for your consideration for appointment as a full-time police officer. I have a little bio on Jessica. Jessica was raised in Attleboro, Massachusetts by her parents Glenn and Angela Ferreira, alongside her 2 brothers, Justin and Brett. She graduated from Attleboro High School in 2015 and at Fitchburg State University, cum laude, with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice in May of 2019. She attended the Women's Criminal Justice Conference and interned at both Attleboro Courthouse and Lunenburg Police Department. Just graduated from the Fitchburg State University Police Academy in 2019 as part of criminal justice program in August of 2020. She'll be obtaining her master's degree. When she wasn't at school, she spent her time working since the age of 14. My son's 18 and doesn't have a job yet. In her free time, Jessica enjoys cooking, volunteering, and walking her dog with her family. She volunteers yearly at the Relay for Life and is recently teaching in the elementary school students about different disabilities. I'd just like to say that Jessica did outstanding in the process. She definitely rose to the top. And it was an easy choice to recommend her to you. The fact, he doesn't agree. The fact that she self-sponsored herself through Academy, joined that wonderful program at Fitchburg State, and put a lot of time and effort, shows her dedication to becoming a police officer. And we're glad to have her. She'll be immediately starting a FTO program tomorrow if she receives the appointment. And I think she's going to be a perfect fit for the Hopkinton Police Department.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Go ahead and follow that up. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And this is what we do. We put you guys on the spot right off the bat.
I wonder.
Well, stuff that you didn't say, I was adopted when I was 8 years old by my parents right behind me. I attended Attleboro High School, all Attleboro public schools, Attleboro High School, and ever since I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to be a cop. It was really challenging. I've been working ever since I was 14. I tried my best to be independent with paying for school myself and self-sponsoring myself in the police academy, so a lot of hard work. And I applied to a couple different schools, decided on Fitchburg, and right when I started Fitchburg, there was this new program that they started. Didn't really know what I was signing up for, but I'm glad I did. 4 years, bachelor's degree, and then right after I graduated, the day after, I started the academy. I just graduated in September and have been on the hunt for a job ever since. Right when I heard about Hopkinton, everyone I knew had always said great things about it. I haven't heard one negative thing yet. So, and so far this entire hiring process, everyone's been really inviting and welcoming to me.
One other note, she forgot to mention, she was also offered a job by Attleboro Police Department, but she chose us over them, which is
Yeah.
nice.
It's good judgment right there. And shows
Considering
solid
it's her
judgment.
hometown, too.
Yep. Mary Jo?
Well, it's nice to meet you. I met you coming in, and I'm glad that you're with us, and it's nice to have another woman on a board or in a department in the town. What really brings you to Hopkinton? What were the things that you heard about Hopkinton that
So-
made it attractive to you?
So initially, the only reason why I've heard about Hopkinton was my neighbors across the street moved here about 10 years ago. So I've been coming up and visiting ever since they moved up here, and that was my first initial feedback from the town of Hopkinton. They've always spoke highly about it, the community, the schools. And when I was in the academy this summer, one of my really good friends started working here, Tyler Brabham. He has kind of not convinced me, but kind of to apply and wanted me to work here and thought I'd be a great fit, and I really believe that to be the case as well.
And I'm sure he said it's a great department.
That was what he said first.
It's nice to know we're well thought of. We have this little race in town in April. Be glad to have you been here for any of those.
I haven't actually.
Oh, you can have fun that weekend. And so I don't really have much to say. I read what I had on you, and we want to welcome you to Hopkinton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Catino?
Again, welcome. You know, your resume sounds fabulous, and you know, it reminds me of, you know, in Hopkinton, we have an inordinate number of Eagle Scouts and Gold Star Girl Scouts. And, you know, listening to the way that you took care of yourself and put yourself through the academy and everything, just sounds like just the kind of person that comes out of Hopkinton. And so yeah, I think you're going to be a great fit. It's just, I'm glad you picked us over Attleboro. Because it's, you know, we especially in this time, you know, in the last 10 years, I was nervous that people wouldn't want to go into law enforcement because, you know, the police were taking all kinds of hits, you know, for just enforcing the laws, and it just totally unfair, and it frightened me that a lot of young people, especially, wouldn't want to go into it. And it's just really refreshing to hear that you wanted to be a cop and you stuck by it, and throughout you know, that tumultuous time that you still wanted to be a cop and still put yourself through the academy and then picked us. So congratulations and welcome to Hopkinton.
Thank you.
Mr. Kamalo, do we have any more? I thought we were going to be appointing more officers today. We only have one.
Yeah, through the chair, owing to procedural and administrative considerations, the board has scheduled an off-cycle meeting to review the other candidates.
All right. But welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Jessica. As far as you landing Hopkinton as your first job, it's kind of like, you know, playing the numbers, and all of a sudden the last one that comes up is the Powerball. So you hit the lottery on this one. Safest town in the city, in the country. You've got chief, a deputy, lieutenant, sergeants, people that have been here for 25 plus years. Phil Powers has been here for close to 100. You've got guys like Bill Burchard, Sergeant Burchard, who grew up here. And then you have a lot of the younger guys that are brand new. So you have the ability to pick and choose the traits of some of the best out there, and you'll be able to kind of absorb some of the attributes of a pretty broad spectrum of police officers, which is fortunate. So Hopkinton is a safe community largely because of the officers' commitments to community policing. How do you see yourself contributing to the community policing goal? I wrote that. I didn't. That's not freehand.
Well, I mean, so when I first, like, I'm trying to think. When I was in, like, before I got adopted, I was in foster care, so I kind of moved around a lot. And when I finally, like, landed in Attleboro, it was great because, you know, I found a home. But I think that working in Hopkinton and being part of this community would just be, like, a perfect fit for me. I think I could really bring a lot of new ideas and learn a lot from the officers in the department. That's pretty much it.
So there was no wrong answer to that. That was well put. From what we've read on your resume and what the chief has said and what you've said, it sounds like you're a natural winner. You kind of rise to the top despite any type of circumstances, and that's exactly what we want as a law enforcement officer in this town. I love the fact that you turned to your parents and said, you know, thank you for help giving you the life that you've had. So you parents must be super proud of where we sit right now. Good. So, and brother, I'm sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. I got you. So this is as much a win for them as it is for you. Congratulations. There's absolutely no gray area here. I don't foresee any stumbling block on bringing you onto the department. So from the bottom of my heart and the board's heart, welcome aboard. Congratulations, and we're glad to have you. Mr. Catino, is there a motion that we would read here?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jessica Ferreira as patrol officer for the town of Hopkinton.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? It carries. Welcome.
Welcome.
To the quilt.
How are you doing, sir? Oh, these things you can get
Which one? This one?
Do you know why you mentioned my name? He's going to charge me for this.
Where's the 100-year-old guy? All right.
Everybody called in.
We're going to have to get a lot more.
Let's go, ladies.
No, you're tall people. Let's see now. Sir, a little more out, that's right? One more this way, sir? No, ma'am. Oh, come on, just for a test, phone, show yourself. And officer in the back. Yep. Want to see you too. You have to look this way now. You can't look that way. All right, is everybody ready?
Yes.
Well, then show me though, let's.
smile? Yeah. All right, is the money still there? All right, I think we got it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, congratulations. Congratulations.
We getting refunded.
All right. We have another one, too.
Okay, let's go.
John? All right, so moving forward, we will consider affirming the town manager's appointment of Kimberly Carson as the outreach coordinator, Senior Services Department. What do we got, Mr. Kamalo? Is she here today?
Yes, and through the chair, I'll also ask Kristen Merrill from the HR office to introduce her.
Yes, always a pleasure to have Ms. Merrill here.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I would like to introduce this evening Kimberly Carson. Kimberly is a resident of Hopkinton, and bear with me as I review my notes. Kimberly has been most recently employed by Hometown Hospitality right here in Hopkinton since 2015. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of Rhode Island and an Associates of Science and received a certification for occupational therapy assistant from Mount Ida College, where she graduated with honors. And prior to working for Hometown Hospitality, Kimberly was a stay-at-home mom. She also has a wealth of experience in the healthcare industry prior to that. So Kimberly we had a panel of 4 for the first round of interviews, including Amy Beck, Senior Services Director, myself, Phil Powers, our School Resource Officer, and Colleen Souza from Youth and Family Services. And then the second round interviews included Amy and myself once again, and we had Dawn Alcott from Youth and Family Services and Sean McAuliffe, our Health Director, on the panel. And Kimberly rose to the top of the pile, and we offered her the position, and she will be starting with the board's approval on January 15th.
Awesome. Awesome. Kimberly, how are you?
Good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're up. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've lived in Hopkinton for 21 years now. I have 3 boys in the school system. I started off my career working in occupational therapy and moved into case management after that. I stayed home with the boys for quite some time, and then Beth hired me with Hometown Hospitality. Been working with them since 2015. So was looking to get back into the field I was working in before, and this popped up, and I thought it was a perfect fit for me.
Awesome. Mr. Catino.
Yeah, it's great, you know, to have somebody that you know, doing the hospitality and then being the outreach coordinator, it just seems like it's just something to just slide right in.
Right.
You know, to make people feel at home and comfortable, you know, and that's what I like to think about Hopkinton is that you hear we say it all the time, it's what we do around here, we take care of each other. And that's the way a town is supposed to be. We're supposed to take care of each other. And so I'm really glad that you rose to the top. And being in Hopkins, did you already know how it feels? You already know the way that you want it to feel, the way you want it to continue. And so it's even better. Now, we just got, the police officer from Attleboro, and she's just going to learn about us, but you already know about us and can continue the great work. So thank you very much for applying and for rising to the top.
Thank you.
Very good.
Well, I'm very glad to have an senior outreach coordinator. You will be working with the assessors a lot, and Stuart at Town Hall. The seniors will need help with exemption applications and tax information and all that sort of thing. And there is a booklet at the senior center with all of them in it, which the assessors have provided. But it's very important that the seniors feel close to you, feel that they can tell you anything, and that you have a good rapport with them, and that the other outreach people also have that same give and take with the seniors who really need your assistance. So I'm very happy to see you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome aboard. I guess I don't have to tell you, it's a great town to live in.
It is.
It's a great town to be in. And that I will tell you that any of my dealings that I've had down at the senior center have been not just professional, but very uplifting. It's nice to, I work in that field, in the geriatric field, and it's nice to be able to make a difference in the lives of people that have generally made a difference in your life growing up. And to be able to get a paycheck from it, that's even better. So, to everybody down there, as I said to the police officer, that it's like hitting the lottery. That senior center, the structure itself is absolutely gorgeous, but it's the people inside of it that makes it. And if you've risen to the top on all these people that you've gone through these interviews with, I'm sure that you're the right fit there. So I'd say congratulations, but I think it's us that's lucky to have you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So having said that,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Mr. Catino. I get you too confused.
Oh, no, I didn't know if Mr. Capello had something to say before I make a motion. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to affirm the town manager's appointment of Kimberly Carson as the outreach coordinator for in the Senior Services Department.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, abstain, it carries. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the 15th.
All right, so we are a solid 17 minutes behind schedule. I can definitely make that up. Consent agenda, board minutes. The select board will consider approving the minutes of the 12/17/19 select board meeting. That's agenda item number 1. Number 2, library fund gift. Select board will consider accepting a $100 gift from Carol Tedstone into the library fund.
Thanks, Mama.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Anyone want to break any out? Hearing none? Okay, congratulations, and thank you, Carol Tedstone, for that. That's nice of you. Mr. Catino.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that said consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, carries, thank you. 2020 seasonal population increase estimation and ABCC renewal certification. The select board will consider approving and signing the 2020 seasonal population increase estimation on the alcohol license renewal certification 2020 forms requested by the ABCC. Let's see.
It is right here.
Mr. Kamalo, do you have anything to add to that?
Through the chair, the assistant town manager, Elaine Lazarus, is here to answer any questions you may have.
The seasonal population estimate is an annual thing, and for a 10-year period, it's the same because it's based on the 2010 census, so it's 15,048. Based on the state's requirement is how it's calculated. It's much lower than the actual population, but
So we'll get a different number next year. So
Hopefully,
this is the
yes.
2020, so 2021 will have a different
depending on
number.
when it comes out, yeah.
Okay, the actual
I
population.
mean, I was surprised that 41 seasonal dwellings and about 123 seasonal people. That's really not a lot to okay this license, this ABCC.
All right, so, Mr. Catino, I'll accept the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to estimate the 14,925 as Hopkinton's temporary increased seasonal population as of July 10th, 2020. Is that the, yeah, that's the right number. That was in 15,048?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes, so actually, I'd like to make the motion to estimate 15,048 as Hopkinton's temporary increased seasonal population as of July 10th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, carries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
also request, I'd also like to make a motion to approve and submit the ABCC's renewal certification form.
Good.
Good. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, abstention carries. Thank you, Mr. Catino, for catching that. Commercial industrial property valuation methodology and process 101. Principal Assessor John Neese will provide a brief, emphasis on brief, explanation of the methodology for valuing commercial and industrial property in the town of Hopkinton and the related communication between the town and property owners.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, before we get to 9, let's handle number 8, delegation of designer selection authorization to the school committee.
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over that. I'm sorry of that. Let's see. Can you guys stick with me for a couple of minutes? Thanks, sorry about that. My fault, I skipped over someone. How are you?
We good?
No, you're good.
Oh, we're good?
Yep.
Password?
Right on the top, right on the front.
Yeah.
Oh. So, good evening. I would like to thank my board members for their support, Leslie Ficari and Gunajit Mehdi. Our third board member, our chair, just started a new job on Monday, second day in her new job, and is not able to join us tonight. I'd also like to thank our chief financial officer, here it is, who put the PowerPoint together based on the material that I provided to him. So. Okay, so commercial and industrial property value assessment methodology and process. I do move quickly. Interrupt me at any time with questions if you'd like, or you can save them till the end. But I'd like to start by quoting Tax Court Judge Carlisle B. Roberts from 1974, who said, "The whole subject of appraisal of property, it's not an art and it's not a science. In my opinion, it's a mystery." So, this shows you our commercial and industrial property base, how many commercial properties we have, industrial, the total, and the value for each of those classes. The commercial accounts for about 4% of the total, and the industrial for about 7.5%. There are three standard approaches to value for commercial and industrial property. The cost approach is essentially the replacement cost new or reproduction cost new, less depreciation based on age and condition, plus the value of the land and site improvements. The income approach basically takes the income of the property, subtracts a vacancy and collection factor for an effective gross income, subtracts whatever expenses are attributable to the real estate for a net operating income, and then capitalizes that income for a value. And sales comparison is based on sales of other similar types of properties in the marketplace with whatever adjustments are necessary. So the state of Massachusetts prescribes that we compute value for income-producing property using two of the three standard methods, that we select one of the two values computed as the tax base or the assessed value, and that the value from those two methods have to be no more than 15% different from one another. So historically, Hopkinton has used the market-adjusted cost approach. In 2019, we transitioned to the income approach for commercial and industrial property value as endorsed by the Department of Revenue. These are the certification standards from the Bureau of Local Assessment, the Division of Local Services from the Department of Revenue. I want to read to you just a couple of short lines. The income approach is used primarily to value investment properties. Since this approach is intended to model the expectations and/or behaviors of a typical investor, it is considered to be the most applicable valuation methodology for income-producing property. There we go. So to set the values, the town collects income and expense information. Under the statute, we keep that information from the property owners confidential. We also use the Patriot assessing system to develop the valuation information. And for owners who decide not to provide income and expense information, there is a $250 fine. And on those properties that we don't receive information from, we model the value using the income approach. So there is an income and expense form that goes out to every commercial and industrial property owners, asking them for that information. There is a letter that goes with that, telling them that we are allowed to do this under the statute and that there is in fact a $250 fine if they don't comply with the information. There is also an instruction page that goes with it. We send a second mailing to those who have not returned the information with the first mailing. We remind them that, at least theoretically, they have lost their right to appeal their value to the appellate tax board, although the ATB can make some exceptions, and that they are then subject to the $250 fine. We much prefer to collect the information than to fine them, so we remind them of that, and we give them an extended period of time to supply that information to us. We have actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said to interrupt you if you're going.
Okay.
Being in some of the meetings, I was in the meeting with you when you were speaking to members of the chamber. And is this income approach the most business friendly? Because we have a lot of open real estate on South Street right now, and we're trying to encourage companies to come here and to have to look like we're business friendly from a town standpoint. And putting things in there that one will get fined if they don't give their income information, and if they don't, that the town will assume an income and tax on that. And I'm just wondering if that is the most business-friendly approach, or is there something else that we could do that we can do so that we can encourage businesses to come here and the town will work with them, and as opposed to making it seem like it's less transparent, because that was some of the stuff that came up at that meeting that we were at, and some people were hit with bills saying that they were a lot higher than they expected, because if people want to retain their tenants, and then the following year the taxes go way up. It's just tough.
So you'd like to make my presentation longer rather than shorter, but the answer to most of your questions, unfortunately, is no. So, let me answer it this way. Investors buy property on an income basis and not on a cost approach basis and not on a sales approach basis. That is very clear from investors in the marketplace. In terms of the fine, I don't like to fine people. I don't think it's a very good public relations move, but we give them adequate notice. We give them an initial notice. We give them a second notice. And we tell them in the second notice that even though you are beyond the deadline, we would much rather have the information from you than do the fine. The reason we do the fine is that every year when we collect the information, the Department of Revenue tells us that we need to do a better job of collecting the information, not just Hopkinton, but every community in the Commonwealth. So, the leverage that we have is to levy the fine against the property owner so that we can try and collect more information so that we have it rather than needing to model the information on their property. And I think the process is very transparent, and if I could sort of hold the answer maybe to that portion a little bit, I'll be sure to answer that question. Okay? So let's see, I think we talked about that one. But just before I go on. So we actually have 24 pages of information at this point on income and expense information and vacancy information from property owners who, since 2015, when I came to Hopkinton, have been supplying that information to us every year. So a property owner that gives us to us every year allows us to track what the change is, either the increase or the decrease in rents, and their expenses and their vacancy, which is, which provides very good information to model these properties. The property record card, as you're probably aware, is 2 pages. It has ownership information, land and building improvements. It has a photograph and a sketch of every property and the value. And when we use the income approach, it has a section which details with the income approach, as I've explained, providing the income information, the type of space, what the rent is, what the expenses are, what the vacancy is, and what the capitalization is in order to arrive at that value. And then we do have a choice, but we have decided to use the income approach as opposed to the cost approach to value income-producing properties, again, because it's the way investors buy and sell those properties. And remember that our mandate, to answer part of your earlier question, is full and fair cash value. So the value would essentially be the same, whether it's the cost approach or the income approach. It's just that we are selecting the income approach as the primary method. At this point. We also publish or have in print 3 pages of information on how we derive market information and how we derive capitalization rates from a lender's method, a market extraction method, some of the national surveys, and also from the information that is provided to us. So if we could go back to the PowerPoint just once. So while the information is confidential, the results of those values are made public. The property owners can elect to withhold their income and expense information, but they do pay the penalty. And there are some property owners that, tell us that they essentially will never provide that to us, which is their choice, which is their right, because even though we tell them it's confidential, they're not sure that they believe that, and they're in competition with other property owners for similar type of space, and they don't want us to know in case other property owners find out what they're renting their space for from us. They do have the right to appeal, as I said, first with the local Board of Assessors, and then provided the income and expense information with the Appellate Tax Board or with the court system. Our goal, our mandate, is for the fairest valuation possible so that each property owner pays their fair share of the tax levy, and we believe that the approach that we are using on commercial and industrial property meets that goal. In terms of providing the information, in terms of the fine we talked about, there were 50 accounts last year. So if you go back to the second slide, I think it was 149 commercial and industrial properties, you'll see that we are collecting information on expenses and income from about 65 to 70% of the property owners. So we have a very good percentage, but part of that is because of the instruction page, because of the fine, because of the first and the second notice, and we are very diligent in trying to collect that from them rather than fining them. But there are still several that, for one reason or another, don't want to provide it to us. And, just to end up a little bit on the transparency issue, I did go to the Economic Development Council at their request and meet with them. I did apologize to them, and I apologize to the Select Board, because when we did the transition, the notification, I will admit in retrospect, wasn't as seamless as it should have been. But, in our defense, or in the defense of the assessing office, we did publish a public disclosure notice in the newspaper for everyone to see. It did tell them that the general increase in commercial property at that time was 9.5 or almost 10%. I understand some went up more, some went up less. We also publish every year, both in print and online, a list of every property in town that shows what their previous assessment was, what their current assessment is, the dollar difference, the percentage difference, which gives them the information ahead of time to come in and meet with us, to talk with us, to adjust the value if necessary, or to prepare their appeal to the Board of Assessors or to the Appellate Tax Board. And one last thing, as a result of some of the issues that some of the property owners raised and the Economic Development Council raised. This year, not with every property, but with the properties that were seeing a greater increase than average, we actually sent out an impact notice. So the first time it was a public disclosure notice that went in the newspaper in general to everyone. Now it's an impact notice that gets mailed individually to the property owner if there is a significant increase in their value. And I'm finished, but I'm happy to take other questions.
Through the chair, another one.
Go ahead.
So, so now that we're going with the income approach, you know, is this what we're gonna stick to for the next several years, or next year, if it looks like we can pull more money, are we gonna change it again? Because I just wanna make sure that businesses have visibility, because, you know, everybody's always figuring 5, 10, 20 years out. And I just want to make sure that when businesses come to Hopkinton, that they can look ahead and say, okay, this is the method they're going to use.
The only way I can answer it is that we will continue to use the income approach as long as I am here. I can't speak for an assessor that comes in after me. And I would just repeat that the reason we made that choice is that's the way the investors buy the property. They don't buy it on the other two methods. And even the Department of Revenue, as I've read to you, says it is the most applicable and preferred method for valuing income-producing property. And again, the mandate is full and fair cash value. So if you own a commercial property that's worth $5 million, the assessment essentially should be $5 million, whether it's the cost approach or the sales approach or the income approach. And I understand, you know, from a select board position that you want the town to appear more business-friendly, but the mandate is the mandate. And just because you might like to, or we might like to, we can't say that a $5 million property is worth $7 million or $3 million, so.
And John, just to reiterate that it's that the income approach, but then he also has to do it a second way and compare that.
Mhm.
So it's a mechanism to double check that you are within the boundaries.
Within that 15%.
Right.
Okay.
And this is good, you guys are both good with the process, and
I am very happy with the process, and since I've been on the board, John and his team has done a wonderful job at going out and soliciting the information, and then when people have questions, having them come in and work on it. And when we go through, if there are issues and they appeal to us, we really look to see, like, where are we, what's your valuation, do we agree with it, ask him a lot of questions. And sometimes we've made adjustments. We found some things that made sense, and what the business people were talking about made some sense to us, and we were able to say, okay, that fits under an area that we can make a change to and allow that. But at the same time, as John said, there are people who will not provide the information, and we are a town that just, we do have business, but we have a lot of individuals that are paying for their home. And if you want to be a good citizen in Hopkinton, even as a business person, then you need to provide the information so that we could work closely with you. So that's my appeal to the people. Do it the right way, make it easy for us to work with you, help us understand what your business is so that we can be business friendly, but also realize that you are contributing to the economic viability of Hopkinton overall.
good, good. Mary Jo, do you have anything?
Well, having done all the various approaches to value myself, and having also worked in the office some 20-odd years ago, this really shouldn't be that new to the citizens of Hopkinton. We have sent out income and expense forms since I worked in the office every year. We haven't always gotten the response that we should have been getting all along, and that is one of the problems. But it's not new, and they've been going out, like I said, since I worked in the office, which was more than 20 years ago. And you want to do things as fairly and as openly as possible. And this is really the way to value commercial property because it is what people are looking for. It's what, if you want to buy a piece of property, that's the information you want. You're not going to get it necessarily from the assessor's office, but that is how business is done. It's not done on a cost approach necessarily. Or even the sales approach, although the sales approach is used and has always been used. But I think that the assessor's office is doing a wonderful job, and I'm not there any longer, but I have faith in John and faith in this particular board that we are doing everything correctly the way that the state is requiring us to do it.
Good. All right, Mr. Catino.
No
No motion?
There is no motion.
No motion? All right. So thank you for your time. Appreciate everything.
Thank you. I am finished, but I did introduce my board members in the beginning. I would just like to thank them for their dedication to me and the citizens of Hopkinton. So thank you both. And Joe.
Well played.
Thank you.
Everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So trying not to skip over the school committee again, the superintendent again. Delegation of designer selection authorization to school committee. The select board will consider approving delegation of designer selection to the school committee for the classroom addition. Good evening. Sorry for the delay.
Not a problem.
My bad.
So Mrs. Rothman and I are here because, as you know, at special town meeting, the schools were appropriated $500,000 for the design and engineering of an addition to Hopkinton High School. The school committee did vote this on January 7th at our last meeting, and I will let Mrs. Rothmick speak to the process.
So the $500,000, basically what we're looking for, that exceeds the guidance for the designer selection committee for the school committee to do that on their own. So the proposal before the select board is for you to delegate that authority to the school committee so we can move forward with the selection.
All right. Let's see. So, Mina, do you want to describe the request?
It's as it's stated.
It's as it's stated, all right. Mr. Kamalo, anything to add?
This is a routine request that comes before the board pursuant to the town's designer selection process. In the past, the select board has approved similar requests.
So a video game going off in the room? Or? There we go. All right.
I think one of the things that is nice about this is that we've already had 25 vendors request the OPM bid package and 26 vendors that requested the design bid package, so that's promising.
Good.
That's what we were hoping for.
Yes,
Good.
it is.
So, Mr. Catino, I will accept a motion on your behalf.
I'd like to make a motion to delegate designer selection for the high school classroom addition to the school committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job. 26.
Board committee appointments. The select board will consider making the following appointments. A, Open Space Preservation Commission. Steve Lewandowski, 1 at-large vacancy, term expires 6/30/24. And B, Veteran Celebration Committee applicants Terry Nelson, Gethin Coolbaugh, 1 vacancy, term expires June 30, 2022. So why don't we start with Mr. Harrow? I believe you're on the open space. I believe you're the reigning chair at this point in time.
It's not raining.
Nice letter, Mr.
It probably is
Harrow.
raining.
I highly recommend Stephen. He has encyclopedic knowledge of this town, its terrain, its open spaces. He runs on a daily basis, I think, all over town. I can't think of anyone who would be a more worthwhile contributor to the function of the Open Space Commission than Stephen.
Good.
We had a vote at our last meeting, and of the members present, it was a unanimous vote to recommend him.
Were there any members not there?
Yes, sir. I shouldn't mention the name.
But it rhymes with Schmedstone? All right, good.
You can just speak.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's
Make a
Brandy's.
motion that we appoint Steve P. Lewandowski for the vacancy at-large position to the Open Space Preservation Commission.
Term expiring June 30th, 2024. Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? It carries. Thank you very much. And Steve, thank you very much. Veteran Celebration Committee. Mike, want to come up? So this is one of those times where we have two applicants for one spot. Mike Whalen, why don't you
So I
take
don't
us
know if this is
through?
going to make your job easier or harder, but as chairman of the Veteran Celebration Committee, I'm just here to voice my support for the applicant, Terry Nelson.
Okay, thank you. So, no, well, so, you're good, dismiss, sir. Board, do you have anything, any questions?
No,
Is the candidate here
I think
tonight?
he,
Yeah, both candidates here right now? Ms. Nelson, you're here, Mrs. Nelson, sorry. Ms. Phipps, Mrs. Nelson. You have been called worse. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So I read through your resume, not that I had to.
It was very short.
It was very short. So Terry comes to us, she's 7 or 8 generations from this town, and comes from a long line of veterans in the family. Her cousin, who has passed away, was a Marine, one of my great friends. Terry has 20 years or so been a great friend of mine, and I would say that she would be an absolute asset to the committee. She's passionate about being a veteran. She's a veteran herself. Her husband is a veteran, and it's, so she's not only a veteran, but she's very ingrained in the town culture. So I would be honored to have you as a member of the Veteran Celebration Committee. If there is anyone on the board that would like to add something or make a motion, I certainly would be willing to listen to that.
Well, after having read everything, I had made a little note here that you were my first choice for this position. And Mr. Kulpa, though, I did want to say, I wanted to thank him for starting a veterans service at the church in Woodville. And I'm sorry that it has faded out, but I would like to encourage him to. He's talking about bringing that back, and I would like to see that happen. So after reading everything, you had my vote before it came here, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Terry Nelson to the Veteran Celebration Committee to a term expiring June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstains? Carries.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson.
For me.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, it's 7:50, we're back on time. Lake Maspenock Weed Management and Control Advisory Group update. The Select Board will hear an update from the Lake Maspenock Weed Management and Control Advisory Group. Hello.
Aye.
Mr. Westerling, so you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, but we took a couple of minutes and spoke about Mike. As a Select Board, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies to you and your workers, your department, for the tremendous loss of such a great worker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board. It was a tragic loss, awful thing to have happened. Our hearts go out to the family. It's a very difficult time for the DPW, so we appreciate the support, and we'll find a way to make it forward.
So the town manager, I know, is 100% in your court on this, as is the Select Board. If there's anything, any resources at all that you need from anywhere in the town, Mr. Kamala or any of us are 100% at your beck and call. So please don't be afraid to ask.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, moving forward.
I'm Cynthia Estheimer. I'm the chair of the Lake Maspenock Weed Management and Advisory Control Group. And I just want to update the Select Board. I'm sure you are very well versed on the condition of the excessive weed growth in the lake in the last several years. And I believe that you know that our preferred method of management for the weeds is to perform an extended drawdown, which would freeze the weeds and knock them down for at least a couple of years. We've been unable to perform that extended drawdown for the last couple of years, and the growth is more problematic, and we expect a tough season coming up in 2020. The Select Board asked the advisory CIT to hold a public hearing to discuss the potential use of herbicides. We did that on November 19th and wanted to update you that the general feel of over 60 attendees was overwhelmingly in support of applying herbicides in a spot method, not generally across the whole body of the lake. There were 4 people who voiced concerns. We listened to all comments and all concerns. The citizens group, we then held a meeting on December 16th, and we thoroughly discussed everything that had been said in the hearing. And we did determine that we wanted to vote unanimously. We did, in fact, vote to recommend to Mr. Westerling that he proceed with the permitting process, setting out bids and moving forward. And so we have done that. That is our recommendation. We ask of the Select Board that you support Mr. Westerling in that. And in wrap up, I'd like to say that the Lake Maspenock Preservation Association has worked tirelessly to be able to return to the extended drawdown as everyone's preferred method. And I ask the town and the Select Board to please support the LMPA's effort to work towards that solution being the best solution for us all.
Thank you. Mr. Kamala, anything? Or Mr. Westerling?
Mr. Westerling?
Mr. Westerling.
Through the chair, we do have the recommendation from the advisory committee, which we are grateful for. Town staff also met, and town staff will be making their own recommendations based on those that they serve. The Conservation Commission, thank you, the Board of Health, the Parks and Recreation Department, all those different groups will also make a recommendation to the Director of Public Works. We are also working through the health agent to look at the further well development of the well that's on Spindle Island. He is working with a company that believes that they can deepen that well by at least another foot. So he's working with that company to hopefully be able to do the drawdown extended in the future. The recommendation from the advisory committee is to draft the application to the Conservation Commission should the town move forward with the application of herbicides, so that we'll be ready for that. And also to bid for the potential use of herbicides in the lake, so that should we need it come the summer, that we'll be well positioned to be able to do that if that's the recommendation from the staff.
So, Mr. Westerling, as an outsider, don't live on the lake. I don't even swim there anymore that often. But having many people that I know live on the lake, the weeds this year were ridiculous. And I know that that doesn't fall under the DPW's purview, so it's not your fault. But I think we need to do something post-haste to make sure that these people that do live on the lake, or the people that do utilize the lake, whether it be Sandy Beach, whether it be Oakhurst Road, whether it be wherever, that they're able to utilize that resource that's in front of them, that some of the homeowners are paying taxes, I mean, most of them paying taxes on, and we're utilizing, it's ruining boats, it's ruining jet skis, it's ruining swimming trips, et cetera. So what's the process as far as timeline on this? And if everything gets approved over this winter, will a spring application of these herbicides be more productive than a summer application, or fall application? I don't know, and I'm strictly asking because my phone only gets allows me so many emails, and it exceeds it weekly.
Through the chair, we had talked about that. The application of herbicides, it's a post-emergent herbicide, so it's not something that we can put down before those weeds are growing. So the advisory committee will do their inspection of the lake as they typically do. They'll try to get out there as late in the season as they can, but as soon as the weeds have started growing, so that they can look to see if the weeds are growing, if the herbicide will be necessary, and when the best time to apply it is. You don't want to apply it too soon because it's post-emergent. You don't want to apply it too late because then the weeds have already taken a foothold. So we're trying to walk that fine line of if we're using herbicides, to put it down as soon as possible, but not too late. So that's why we're doing the permitting now. We're also doing the bidding now, so that should they be needed, and should the town choose to apply them, that we'll be in good position to do that.
Good. So that was just the fact that you're telling me that the herbicides are post-emergent. I equate the weeds to weeds on a lawn, which of course you don't, and you put pre-emergent down to make sure the crabgrass doesn't come up. And I just wanted to make sure that if it was something that needed to be down before they emerged, that we weren't gonna get it done in September when we should get it done in April. So, sounds like summer's the right thing. Sounds like we're on the right track. Cindy, would you agree?
Sure, I do.
Good. Cynthia, sorry. Good. Mr. Catino.
Yeah, I just want to point out the fact that we appointed, through town meeting and the board, this weeds committee. And I got to say that it really has been a very transparent and very pragmatic approach. They didn't come to using herbicides lightly. And even now that it's still it's going through some town committees. When I remember putting this team together, that there were several people on that committee that were absolutely against herbicides, and that's why when this committee came, I went to several of the meetings, and it came to me and said, this is really the only approach right now, that I believe it. And I really believe that we should do it as soon as possible, and to continue to empower this committee to make the right decisions. They have our best interests at heart, and I absolutely trust them. So really continue the great work, and thanks for taking care of the lake. It's really important to the town.
Anything?
Yeah, it seems like this has been an ongoing issue forever. And I'm so glad that we've come to a point where we can do something about it. And I know that you've done a lot of due diligence in the kind of herbicides and the kind of controls that we have out there now, and that there are some much better than there were years ago. And I'm really glad to see that we're working with the people on Spin Hill Island, that things are happening there so that we can do a drawdown in the future. And it looks like that it's been a long and difficult effort, but it looks like we're really making progress here, and I congratulate you on that.
Good. So we don't need anything, right? That's good. Great. Thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it again, Mr. Westland.
Thanks for coming in.
So sorry.
Thank you again, and
Great.
through the chair, again, thank you very much for your kind words. Mike is irreplaceable and a tragic loss, so thank you.
Thank you, John. 2020 Annual Town Meeting. The May 4, 2020 Annual Town Meeting warrant is open, and the board will discuss its own potential articles, including general bylaw changes. The board has a potential article list in the packet. Let's see. Do we have that in here, Mr. Kamalo?
Yes, through the chair, we did include a listing of potential articles for the board's consideration. It's simply tonight, the idea is to notify the public, give the board the opportunity to comment on which ones you'd like to see us move forward, and also, because the warrant is still open, if you have any additional articles that you would like us to consider, please let us know. For the sake of the public at home, these are the articles that we're putting forth to the board. Street opening permit bylaw, trained safety officer bylaw designation, DPW director fine authority. This is relative to suspending or revoking permits that are issued for relative to street openings.
Something that we kind of touched on earlier a few months ago.
Yes, yeah, with regard to Eversource work on West Main Street. And then acceptance of General Laws, Chapter 40U. The town has not adopted the provisions of this law, which allows the town to designate a municipal hearing officer and follow certain other procedures related to municipal fines. The town clerk previously inquired about this issue, and we hope we will move this forward. Revolving funds, this is an item that has been on the annual town meeting warrant, I think, for the last 3-4 years. Before that, we had revolving funds renewed annually at the town meeting. And then number 6, revisions to bylaw chapter 62. This is with regard to the animals. Again, this has been a constant on the annual town meeting warrant for the last 3 years. I understand from speaking with Elaine that the proposed revisions this year would be very minimal. And then number 7, this is an issue that has been discussed at staff level, namely how does the town address the excessive 911 calls without discouraging people from calling 911. And then number 8, general bylaw cleanup. This has come through the town clerk, where his office has identified non-substantive scrivener's or similar errors in the general bylaws that we would like to clean up. And then last but not least is the charter amendment relative to the change from the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board.
So, Mr. Kamalo, on number 7, excessive 911 calls, I think there should be, and I'm sure that Ray will take a look at this, but I'm sure the town, where it says the town may want to consider adding a provision to the general bylaw that imposes a charge or fine for excessive 911 calls. I don't think it's appropriate, even a little bit, to impose a charge or fine for excessive 911 calls if the 911 calls are emergencies. So I would need to maybe put some language in there saying 911 calls that don't meet the criteria of an emergency.
Correct.
I would hate to have somebody with a broken leg say, I'm going to walk it off and try to get to the hospital because I don't want to get a $10 fine.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to do that. Also, number 9, and my feelings on that, are we able to amend the charter off-cycle?
Yeah. I believe from previous advice from town council, there is a way to address the inconsistency that has been created through the change to the select board. I don't believe this would specifically be asking for a direct charter amendment. It may be an indirect way of addressing
Yeah, so we'll look into that a
consistency.
little bit more.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Anyone have any questions on that? All right. So we are good. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Good. All right. Thank you. Town manager report.
Main Street Corridor Project, good news to report. The Federal Highway Administration issued the environmental permit for the project.
Good.
We got the news yesterday morning.
Excellent.
We're continuing to review the parking provision around the Muffin House. We had a meeting with the property owner, both the tenant as well as the property owner, a couple of weeks back. Several options were discussed, and our engineers are looking into those options, as well as we asked the property owner, or the property owner offered to look into some on-site changes that might add parking around that building. We are hoping to submit the 100% design by end of January. That's it on the Main Street Corridor project. Then on the budget update, I do have some handouts to share with the board. I believe Ben Sweeney,
They're deep in thought,
exactly, the handouts for the board. Yeah,
like Jack Handy.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Oh, what do we got here? Capital items. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, these are always great.
I'm gonna need another pen, Mr. Kamalu.
Red one?
So this is just kind of something for us to chew on, right?
Yeah,
We're not
simply.
gonna go over this item by item now, and
Absolutely. Big picture outline of what I'm looking at in terms of the departmental budget requests. I think what you will hear throughout my remarks is the phrase initial mark. I need to give credit to the CFO, Tim O'Leary. He's the one who's introduced us to this term. It basically, in my mind, relates to the beginning of a process. So tonight, I'm presenting you with a review of the budgets submitted to the town manager and an initial mark on a fiscal year 2020 general fund budget that meets the guidance the Select Board provided on September 24th, 2019, namely to produce a budget limited by new revenue from new growth in the tax base and 2.5% growth in the tax levy. On the revenue side, and you can refer, I want you to refer to the handout entitled Town of Hopkinton FY 2021 Sources and Uses, dated January 7, 2020. On the revenue side, we are projecting new revenues at approximately 3.9 million, leaving aside the proposed excluded borrowing. This 3.9 million includes the following: 1.7 million representing the 2.5% growth in the tax levy, 2 million representing the new growth in the tax base, and a net revenue growth of 175,000. We have also submitted our free cash data to the state, and we're projecting free cash from the FY20 budget process, which will also be applied in the FY20 as well as the FY21 budgets in the amount of $1.9 million. And then moving on to the budget submitted. Against these available new resources, I received 6.4 million in new requests, aside from the proposed excluded debt, including funds for employee compensation increases, the cost of commodity and service increases, as well as new service enhancements and improvements. The initial budget mark I'm sharing with you tonight provides for contractual and merit pay adjustments on both the school and town sides of the enterprise, and/or cost escalation in areas like health care, required contributions to our pension plan, and estimated costs for our liability insurance coverage. The initial budget mark continues our proposed contributions to our OPEB trust fund and our stabilization fund, as well as capital spending. Departments requested 22.3 million in capital projects, including a proposed or projected $15 million for center school reuse and $4 million for the school roof renewal. Budget requests from some town departments and from the schools exceeded the level established in the Select Board's budget guidance. The draft requests received from our excellent Hopkinton Public Schools asked for an 8.9% increase of 4.3 million which is 1.6 million above the budget guidance target. As a starting point for the budget process, I'm including a 6%, 2.9 million increase for the schools, which leaves the schools 1.4 million below their request. On the town side, I'm likewise proposing an increase that leaves departments $280,000 below their requests. These initial proposed funding levels I'm providing are achievable within the 2.5% tax levy impact, net of $2 million in new growth and excluded debt. And this is consistent with the budget message issued by the Select Board. While this is a challenging budget year, I encourage everyone to remember that this initial mark is a very early waypoint in a long budget process that will include many public discussions and reviews by the Select Board, other town boards, the general public, and ultimately by the town meeting. Clearly, the needs expressed by all town departments are a major factor for consideration and review, along with the proposed capital spending for the replacement and renewal of the town's assets and infrastructure. I look forward to working with the Select Board and all other stakeholders to progress towards a final budget recommendation to the town meeting that balances available resources and competing town priorities. And again, in summary, my remarks relate to the budget message that was put together by the Select Board, the budget request that I have received from all town departments, and the challenges that we will need to address going forward.
Mr. Kamala, thank you very much for this, and I know that you're under the gun with such a comprehensive report, knowing that we had such a short amount of time to do this based on the town meeting, the off-cycle town meeting that we had and all the work leading up to that. So I know that this is just something to kind of chew on for a little bit, and we'll get together with our school committee and our other departments, and I'm sure we'll have another couple of meetings, and some will be good, some will not be good, but we will do what's best for the town of Hopkinton, to get us to town meeting. So, thank you very much. Your next item?
Okay, I'll skip to item D and then switch back to the LNG Tank B update.
Okay.
Item B, I'm requesting the board's authorization to submit and execute all related documents in relation to a Mass Trails grant application for the Campus Trail Connector. I provided the grant information and grant amounts in the meeting packet.
Okay.
Do you want them to talk about it, or do you want to just make a motion?
What's our move on this, Mr. Kamala? What do we have to do?
Yes, if the board is so inclined, move a motion authorizing the town manager to submit the application.
With
and
that, Mr.
execute
Chairman,
all related documents.
I'd like to have the pleasure of making the motion to authorize the town manager to submit the 2020 Mass Trails Grant application.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Okay, carries, good. Thank you.
Great. Last but not least, with the support of the fire chief.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Yes.
How are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
By way of introduction, my understanding is the restoration process at the LNG facility regarding Tank B is progressing well. The chief is thoroughly involved in the process, and surprisingly, Eversource has been cooperative.
Sure. I think the best update I can give you is the last 2 months, we've done quite a bit of work with Eversource, Air Products, the building department, and through the inspectional services, and my inspectional services. And we basically meet there weekly on Tuesdays. Eversource did give us a tour of Tank B and some familiarization with what the work they're doing and their plans they're doing, and there was quite a bit of information exchanged, and both for myself and the building inspector, it made our job easier, kind of an awareness level. The update on the tank is still the same. The tank is purged to air, it is isolated, it's in its safest condition right now, and they're awaiting proposals. The proposals will kind of determine long-term where they intend to go with the tank, and then once I receive that information, I can start to share with you my perspective on that. They have a new gentleman from Eversource that's down there that is actually running that project, and in that last 2 months, I found him very good to work with, information-wise. So that is a positive change. Just some of the work they've done is they've done some access improvements, some labeling improvements to the site. I think that's the short answer for it. So that would be my update.
So Chief, just to have you come up before us and tell us that they're being a bit more amenable now than they have in the past is definitely great to hear. You know, I know that we have, as a town, we've not had the best luck with them supplying us with information. So great job to you and your crew and everybody involved with this process to get us to where we are, that we can have some constructive conversations and be included in some of the things. So I'm not going to run on because I can do nothing but hurt your relationship with them. So congratulations, good luck, and keep it going.
Thanks, and I think just to realize that the Tank B future project is still the unknown, so there's still a lot of information to come.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Mr. Kamalo, anything else there?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Lagori?
Thank you for following up on that. I know I asked for an update on that, so thank you.
I had a question on the previous vote. It happened really quickly. I was kind of caught off guard there. I thought there was going to be a presentation, but just as the chair of the TCMC, the Trails Coordination and Management Committee, I wanted to let you know that we also have a proposal going in for the Mass Trails Grant that we're preparing. It's very unlikely that the state would accept 2 grants from a fairly well-to-do town. So I think I would like you to think about looking at both proposals at your next meeting and making a determination as to which makes the most sense for the town.
Okay. Mr. Kamalo, what are your thoughts on that, Mr. Kamalo?
Yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing about this potential or prospective grant application, second grant application. It's always a welcome challenge to us, a town hall, to help any town committee working on a grant application. So I encourage Mr. Lagoy to touch base with our office tomorrow, and we will work with you on the application. Again, having, yes.
Looking at some stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And also having been part of several grant application processes, I think the town loses nothing by casting its net wider. If we submit 2 grant applications, the better for the town.
I don't care which one it is.
So we'll work with you to,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just one comment. The Upper Charles Trail Committee, Jane Moran, 70 East Main Street, Chair of the Upper Charles Trail Committee. In preparing this grant application, we did extensive research, and last year's submissions to the state actually awarded 2 grants to the town. I believe it was Wayland. I can correct that if I'm mistaken. So there doesn't seem to be any foundation for that. If the grants applications are factual and substantial and based on what the state is requiring, that's what they go with.
Thanks.
Thank you.
As much money as possible back.
Liaison reports.
Well, I just want to say, I went to the Boy Scout Eagle ceremony Sunday night, and it was very nice. Those guys are just terrific. It was just a follow-up. I was invited, so I went. I have another question for maybe another town manager report or something from fire or DPW or whatnot. I'm getting an awful lot of questions on that 85 Chestnut Street corner. And I know that the town's portion must be pretty much done. Is it the utilities that are hanging us up there?
In fact, good news to report. John?
Through the chair, Verizon just completed the removal of their utility poles a week ago, just before Christmas. So with the holiday, the two holidays, we've worked with the contractor, the town's contractor, to remove the Jersey barriers and to pave the shoulder where the road was widened. They're going to begin that work on Monday. So that should be cleaned up by Monday, Tuesday. The majority of the work is complete by the town's contractor in the street. We've been waiting for the poles to come down. The only work that we have left to do is to mill and overlay, to take off the pavement that's there and put in new pavement and restripe it. The lights are already up overhead, they're already activated, ready to go. So as soon as the weather breaks in the spring, then our contractor will remobilize, once this temporary work is done next week, remobilize to complete that project. We've been waiting.
I know it was the utilities.
They finally completed their necessary work.
I didn't want to say that to anybody else.
I will always say that. I don't ever have a reservation of
I
saying
didn't
that.
really have a problem with it, but I just wanted to double check. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah. In fact, if I may add, I think we should mention that Verizon has been accessible throughout this waiting period. When we have had questions, they have responded. When they have failed to deliver on some of our expectations, they've been available to explain why. So there has been some positive developments, although yes, granted, this has taken longer than we initially planned.
Well, Mr. Westling, the only question I have on that, I looked at that the other day, where the pole was, where they took it out, that's flush cut, so there's a pole in the dead center of the sidewalk. Are you gonna, or someone gonna pull the stump of that pole out and then redo that section?
Absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. The contractor in the town didn't want to leave a piece of gravel there because it was, there was cement concrete there.
Yep.
So what will occur is we'll have to jackhammer out the concrete around that pole, pull out that stub, and put down fresh concrete where that stub pole, it was a push pole supporting the other pole.
Yep. Nope, it looks good. I'm glad it was, glad it's done. I won't say it was quick, but I'm glad it was done.
And if not for the weather, we would have been able to finalize the work, but now we've got to wait till the plants are open and we can pave it properly.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
John?
Mr. Chairman, one thing that came to my attention was HCAM offered to make their studio available for Main Street corridor project updates, for transparency and planning purposes for both businesses and the citizenry, that they said that if they want to have any update meetings or notices go out, that they would make the studios available. So
It's nice of them.
we're going through the whole process, so people can say, just tune in for that 15 minutes a day and get all your information.
Oh, nice. We'll have Mr. Westerling doing updates every night. Or Del Torrio, whoever it takes, as long as it's not anyone up here. So let me think. I don't have any liaison reports. So, Mr. Kamalo, any future board agenda items or board members, I guess?
For the board's information, we will be receiving an update from the Trails Coordination and Management Committee at the board's next meeting.
Okay, and we have
As
to,
well
at
as-
some point, schedule an off-schedule meeting to work with the police department.
Correct.
But that's nothing we have to do here, that's something we can just post whenever.
Yes, and there will also be an update from the DPW Director and Mass DOT regarding the Foot Street Bridge work.
Good. Good. How's the salt budget? Doing pretty good right now?
It's early this year.
And what's today? Today is the 7th, so we don't meet again. Chief, I do believe that the outdoor, this is my favorite season coming up now, the outdoor burning season is coming up, starting, is it the 15th? Cannot wait. Get your permits, get them early, get them often. All right, out by 4. Nothing bigger than that. All right, hearing nothing else.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Roger that.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstain, it carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
everyone.
Thanks for watching.